It is balance time at Warhammer HQ, the last one of 9th edition, but not the last one we will ever get. As part of the balance interview explanation that Games Workshop does, they explain that their live service update style of seasonal balance patches every 3 months will continue into 10th edition. I expect that they will skip the July patch because if 10th edition is out by then, there won't be enough data. The only exception is if something is glaringly off. Incidentally, I did a video on why Imperial and Chaos Knights look to be taking a big hit in 10th edition. I didn't mention that they will likely have a high objective control score to stop 2 surviving guards holding an objective against a massive monster knight, but you would have to watch the video to decide if that's enough to offset the issues I foresee for them. I thought that this video would be about Genestealer cult. I had a thumbnail on them all ready to go. They had a high tournament battle win rate, few players used them, and they're one of the hardest armies to play. Still, I expected them to get hammered down for daring to be outside of the bottom 3. Thankfully, sense prevails, and all that's changed is one of their secondaries, which I expected, or hoped for. You no longer get a victory point each turn for having more models than your opponent on the board. This is kind of a given that you were going to score it given how cheap cultists were. This will not greatly affect games of 40k, but it will stop tournaments having one very easy to score objective. On the point of secondaries, Thousand Suns and Grey Knights got support, only in that their opponents can no longer get double victory points for killing sighted characters. Abhor the Witch secondary is now in the same category as Assassination, so you can only pick one. A little boost to them in tournaments. Before we talk about the true victims of this balance patch, a note on the Imperial Guard. With their short-lived codex, they are doing well with certain tactics, one of which was to give a Kazakin sergeant the Barbican's key using the battlefield quest stratagem before the battle, and then teleport the Kazakin unit across the battlefield before using overcharge las cell stratagem to cause a lot of mortal wounds and delete your chosen target. Now this caps at 6 mortal wounds, and to be honest I hadn't noticed, I'd just played it that way anyway. Tactic stands, the guard stands, but mortal wounds are capped. There was one other change to the Imperial Guard. Filial Standard lost part of its abilities. That is, it no longer has the ability to ignore modifiers to hit. This was very nice when combined with mortars and bombast field guns to fire indirectly, and with take aim, they would be hitting indirectly on a 3+. I hadn't considered this tactic until now. The reason I take the standard is if I'm playing against Death Guard, very popular armor to play since they were in the 8th edition starter set, the standard removes the Poxwalkers Feel No Pain, and on all of the Death Guard it removes their main trait of -1 damage. Now bombast field guns are killing a traitor with every wound. So auto-include against Death Guard and Wraith Guard heavy armies, leave it in the cupboard for everything else. Okay, the Imperial Fists. They and their lesser performing Space Marine colleagues, like the beautiful Blood Angels, took an undeserved hit. Games Workshop was trying to balance out the Dark Angels and the Iron Hands, who love to stay in Devastator Doctrine all game, and could get 15 victory points just from killing enemies while in Devastator Doctrine. Now there is a cap of 5 victory points per Doctrine. So this encourages Dark Angels and Iron Hands to change Doctrine, or they just don't pick Codex Warfare secondary. Imperial Fist relied on that secondary to score points as an underperforming sub-faction. They also like the Devastator Doctrine to make their heavy weapons better against vehicles. Getting 2 victory points per unit kill in that doctrine was great. Now they will have to change Doctrine to the Assault Doctrine, which doesn't really favour their playstyle of heavy weapons and mass boulder fire. Still going to enjoy playing. The ones that needed a big leg up were Deathwatch. They don't have to progress down through the doctrines anymore, they can pick it each turn. This does offset the change to Codex Warfare secondary, but they needed a bigger boost than that. Like also being able to choose a chapter and get their sub-faction bonus each turn, instead of their own alien killing specialism. They had that before, but it got stripped out in January, and this is where they're left, with 38% win rate. Bonuses to killing aliens doesn't help if your opponent isn't feeling Xenos. My next 40k video is going to be about one rule change for 10th edition that does have massive impact. Look out for that. But that was the last balance patch of 9th edition. Small changes that won't be taking effect for very long before 10th edition comes out. That is what my channel is focused on for now. See what you think about Knights in 10th edition after watching my video. From a community poll, most of my community thinks they will turn out okay. If you haven't watched it, see if you agree. Have a great day of 40k.